Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have John E. Peltier. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, The Thundering Herd, Farm Life in the 1950s and 60s, Looking Through the Lens of Duty in Vietnam. Available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I will say, John was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have John here on the line because his book we're discussing today, The Thundering Herd, aside from having such a catchy title and really just sucking you in instantly when you read it, it's such a relatable book. Now, it's a memoir, okay, and it's going to be revolving around not only John's life, but also his family's history. Not all of us get to be written about in the history books. In fact, the vast majority of us do not. But just because our history doesn't seem deemed appropriate to be taught about in history classes doesn't mean our stories aren't worth being told. And I love the fact that we have John here on the line because that is exactly what he thought, right? When he was going through the process, he thought to himself, all of these fantastic stories of his family's history, he did not want to be lost to time. So he took it upon himself to put the words on the page and actually put the book out there so that this way his family's history was documented. And it's going to have religious undertones as well. And there are so many fantastic nuances to the book that John himself is going to be able to articulate much, much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring him here on the line with us. John, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, listen, John, we're very much looking forward to this. Now, before we jump into the book, John, let's hold off slightly. Let's start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself.
I was born the fifth of 12 children and was raised on the saltgrass prairie in southeast Texas on a rice farm. And all the things that happen on a rice farm amongst 8 boys and 3 girls, and we lost one child in birth, but there was a dozen of us, and
I'm so sorry.
And there were so many things that happened along the way. I just couldn't see all these stories to leave when we left. So then I decided I needed to share these life experiences on the written page.
John, thank you very much for sharing. And with such a large family, of course you had to write a book about it. I mean, there's just too many stories going on. You had to write a book and really encapsulate everything that way. So without further ado, The Thundering Herd, Farm Life in the 1950s and 60s, Looking Through the Lens of Duty in Vietnam. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, the title of the book, The Thundering Herd, is what my mother called her clan. So that's how I picked the title. And just the things that right out of high school, I was drafted into the U.S. Army and was a medical corpsman, and it was like being jerked out of a farmhouse and thrown into chaos. So I learned a lot of things there, and the lessons that I learned along the way, I think, made the biggest difference in my life was growing up on a farm and ranch. So that's, I ended up being in the construction business, and it's where I found my wife and my the things that I do for a living, the construction business. I mean, it's been a great run, and we were very successful at it. It's called the Peltier Brothers Construction, and we had 5 brothers in it. I started it with no brothers in it, but there were 5 brothers in it along the way, and it's just been a great life. And there's so many things that happen, and they came to this book.
In terms of inspiration, what inspired you to embark upon this journey? Now, we know why it was important for you to gather this information for yourself, but why didn't it end there? You wanted to go a step further and actually put the book out for the public to be able to partake in as well. What inspired you to do that?
I just thought it was stories that were would be interesting, and people could can see how a religious, we depend on Jesus in our life, and he's there in the background of everything. And there were times that I encountered close adventures to death, but I was bit by a rattlesnake, and I could feel the poison coursing up my arm after he did it, and I didn't know if I was going to get through that or not, and the good Lord got me through it. And there's just so many things in life that you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but at least you have a good mirror of what happened in the past. And I just wanted to I just thought there were so many stories. I just wanted to get them out there.
Absolutely. Again, here in the line with John E. Peltier. We're discussing his fantastic book, The Thundering Herd, Farm Life in the 1950s and 60s, looking through the lens of duty in Vietnam. Available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Now, John, as we continue with this fantastic interview, next concept that I'd love to go into, talk to our listening audience. Now, of course, this is a memoir, right? So you're not having to do a ton of research aside the fact I'm just scanning your memories and putting it all together on the page. Now, as you stated, you come from a construction background. So switching to a creative journey in this magnitude, I'm sure there was probably some research or some fluctuation in learning how to comprise a book and really put that together. Articulate to our listening audience, what type of research did you do in preparation for this book?
Well, I didn't want to put a book out there that there's so many times you read about 10 pages, you throw it down and you don't pick it back up. I wanted to make it interesting. So I actually went to the writing classes in the local, like at University of Houston and different other little schools around, just so I would know I could put 1 and 1 together and get 2. And we did that. And so that's, and I hope it was successful. I had my sister-in-law edit the book, and she's a lawyer, and I think she did a good job there. And I just wanted to be something that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book, John? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
Well, it just brought things alive from the past. I mean, I spent 14 months in Vietnam as a medic, and we did a lot of work with the civilians in what's called a med cap, and we would go out and pull first aid and aid on the civilian people, and that was an interesting thing, and it was fun to go back and find out, the stories of, it was like the med cap started in the Korean War, and it carried on through, and I'm sure they're still doing it today. It's trying to make the United States look like we were there to help and not to hinder. So anyway, that was one of the things that I really liked to do was go back to those years. I was a teenager. 19, I spent most of my time there, the whole year.
John, what are you hoping to see people do with this book? Or what are you hoping to see people take from this book?
Well, I think it would be good for a lot of people that don't know anything about farming and ranching, and how it starts when you grow up on a farm and ranch situation. Your chores start when you're about 5 years old, and you learn responsibility. Wow. And you learn to. There's so much things that we learned there that made us successful. All my brothers and sisters, believe it or not, we still talk to each other and do things with each other, and we love each other. But we all have been successful in different businesses, and it's just kind of a fun thing that this is just a good way for people to see how other people live, I guess.
Well, absolutely. As we start to tie up this fantastic interview, being an artist myself, I love having this platform to pay it forward to other artists listening in. Now, you've been through the gauntlet of writing a book. You've taken classes to figure out really how to construct the narrative. You've gone through the gauntlet of having somebody else edit the book for you to just, get another pair of eyes on it, make sure there's no mistakes. And then you've also gotten it published. John, any words of wisdom that you'd be able to relate to our listening audience, to a new writer that's out there that's listening in?
Oh, I would tell them you just gotta put your nose down and your tail up, and you just force yourself to get it, and pretty soon you almost have a rhythm of being able to explain one thing. I really got to where something would happen in one place in the world, and then I could just segue into a different thing. Like we went to Mozambique in with our church and did ministry over there, and that kind of was similar, except not the same, but being in Vietnam, we work with the locals there in the med cap, and so you just learned how to move through all these things and really be able to keep it interesting at the same time.
There you have it. There you have it. At the end of the day, ain't nothing to it but to do it, right? Practice makes perfect. It's one of the oldest cliches in the book, but guys, it rings true so often. Listen, what more can be said? You know what you got to do. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pick up your copy of The Thundering Herd, Farm Life in the 1950s and 60s, Looking Through the Lens of Duty in Vietnam by John E. Peltier. At the end of the day, we're talking about his particular experience, but always keep in mind and always reference what you can apply to your life and how his experience could influence you on your journey. Let's grow, let's develop, let's educate ourselves. John, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
All right. Thank you for having me, and God bless.